Hello friends, welcome again. Friends, in today's video lecture, we want to understand Aristotle's very famous critical document entitled as the Poetics. Here, we will discuss Aristotle's own concept of tragedy. But before we move ahead, I request my viewers to please subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, you might get the notification. So friends, now let's begin. Friends, Aristotle was not an ordinary philosopher. In our previous video lecture, we discussed Plato as a great Greek philosopher who lived during the 3rd and 4th century BC in Greece. In the same manner, Aristotle was the disciple of Plato. Plato was the disciple of Socrates and Aristotle became a student, became a pupil of Plato. And Plato was a great philosopher. In the same manner, Aristotle became an equally a great philosopher. There are hundreds of critics in all literatures who are showering their voice of wonder on Aristotle's critical comments on art and literature. I have taken this quotation from Sainsbury. Sainsbury says that Aristotle is the Alexander of criticism. Friends, this term, this name, Alexander, is given to a person who is the winner. Okay, Alexander was a great warrior who remained invincible all throughout his life. So, Aristotle, according to Sainsbury, is the Alexander of criticism, and his conquest means his winning in the field of criticism, unlike those of his students, pupils means students, remains practically undestroyed. Means you cannot compare Aristotle's contribution to any other critics or any of his followers, right? So that is what Sainsbury wanted to say. Aristotle, as I told you in the beginning, lived in Greece. He was a Greek critic, a Greek historian, a Greek logician, a Greek philosopher. Aristotle lived during the 4th century BC, and he was the most favorite student, favorite disciple of Plato. And he was a myriad-minded man. Myriad-minded man means he applied his brain in so many branches of knowledge. So that's why you can say he was a versatile genius. He did not contribute only in one field. He contributed in a host of fields, to a number of fields. He had the unquenchable thirst for gaining knowledge in different branches of knowledge, such as drama, politics, ethics, history, medicine, philosophy, logic, mathematics, astronomy, rhetoric, biology, and what not. In fact, Aristotle has studied all these different subjects and has mastered himself in all these different fields. By knowing this, you can just imagine that Aristotle was not an ordinary scholar. He was, as I told you, a versatile genius and a myriad-minded man. These all subjects, whether logic, history, philosophy, economics, mathematics, rhetorics, art and literature, these are, if I use some figurative language, these are some of the dishes with which he tried to feed his appetite for learning. He was a hungry man and he tried to feed himself by studying all these different subjects. And that is why, Plato was his guru. Plato once said about Aristotle, about his university, about his academy, that there are two parts in my academy. Okay? Body of all his students and brain of Aristotle. So, Aristotle was the brain of Plato's academy, Plato's university. And this is how we understand that Plato as a student was very important Aristotle as a student was very important for Plato, and Aristotle, when grew up as a philosopher, he contributed to so many different fields, and that is why the world is remembering Aristotle as such a giant personality. Now, let's come to the point of the discussion of the Poetics. The Poetics is the book written by Aristotle. It is the most amazing, the most inspiring and the most influential work of art, work of it is a critical document on poetry. The Poetics, if I use the words of a critic Atkins, then the Poetics is a miracle. It is a miracle. Why? Because it contains so much that is of permanent and universal interest. You just imagine that the theories on tragedy, on poetry, on epic, which Aristotle has given in the Poetics before some 2400 years, even today, we are following his theories. The authors, the critics are influenced by his theories, and that is why it is known as a magnanimous work, and that's why it is also called as the world book in criticism. Okay, why? Because he has explored the areas which were unexplored by anybody so far, during the times of Aristotle. Abercrombie, one of the important critics on Aristotle, has rightly said that the theory of tragedy is worked out with such an insight and comprehension that it becomes the type of theory of inspiration. He wants to say that Aristotle has presented the theory of tragedy, and this theory of tragedy has so much insight and comprehension that it has become a kind of theory of inspiration. Means after Aristotle, all the writers of tragedy, they are so much inspired by Aristotle's theory of tragedy. So what is Aristotle's theory of tragedy that we want to discuss now? It is a little bit longer definition of tragedy, but we are going to understand it line by line. Friends, Aristotle wrote the Poetics in Greek language. So, originally it was in Greek, but now what we have is the translated version of the Poetics. So, the translated version of the definition of tragedy here you can see on the screen. He said that tragedy then is an imitation of action. Okay, that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, embellished with each kind of artistic ornaments, several kinds being found in separate parts of the play, in the form of action, not of narration, through pity and fear, effecting proper purgation of these emotions. So line by line, let's now try to understand this definition of tragedy given by Aristotle. Okay, in the first line, he says that tragedy is an imitation of an action. Now, remember, Aristotle was the disciple of Plato. Plato said that art is imitation, poetry is imitation. So, the student naturally believes in the same philosophy, in the same ideology, and that's why Aristotle also follows Plato and says that tragedy is an imitation. Imitation of what? Imitation of action. But the difference between Aristotle's concept of the word imitation and Plato's concept of the word imitation is different. According to Aristotle, imitation means copy. But according to Plato, the word imitation means just a copy. But Aristotle says that imitation means imaginative reconstruction of ideas. Okay, so the point is that he says that the author uses his own imagination and reconstructs life in tragedy. And that's why, tragedy becomes more beautiful. Okay, the life presented on the stage becomes more beautiful than the actual life. And the same idea, if you remember Sir Philip Sidney has said, the world is brazen, the poets only deliver golden. That means Sidney said that this world is made of brass. This world is made of brass, but the poets make this world a golden world. How? With the help of imagination, they reconstruct life in tragedy. Let me give you an example that the building where you are living, the house where you are living, gets older after 10-15 years. Then what? It needs renovation. Yes or no? It needs renovation, and after renovation, it looks more beautiful, even more beautiful than the original. So, reconstruction is always more beautiful, and Aristotle said that imitation means imaginative reconstruction of ideas, and that's why life looks more beautiful in tragedy. And that's why imitation is not just a copy. Imitation does not mean dull and drab copy, just like a monkey. Otherwise, there is no difference between a monkey and a poet. Okay, that's why Aristotle's concept of the word imitation is more agreeable for the students. Aristotle says that the dramatist must imitate only serious actions. Now, our life is what? Our life is full of actions, but these actions are either comic actions or serious actions. When you are writing a tragedy, you should imitate, you should copy only serious actions from life. Why? Because it is a tragedy, and tragedy has to be noble, has to be serious, has to be elevated. So, this is the first line. Tragedy is an imitation of an action that is serious. Then he says that actions must be complete. Okay. He says that the tragedy must be complete in itself. An action must have a good beginning, a good middle, and a good end. If the play begins abruptly, say for example, when you watch a movie in the theater, all of a sudden the play begins, the movie begins from the middle, then it startles you, it surprises you, it creates problems or questions or confusion in your mind. So, a good beginning is one which begins from the beginning. And in the same manner, when the play ends, the audience should not ask what happens next. Sometimes it so happens that when we watch the movies, then at the end of the movie, some spectators, some viewers are still sitting even when the movie is over. Why? Because the end is not good. They feel that still some more actions are to come. But a good end must resolve all your doubts, all your problems and questions and confusions. That is called a good beginning. So, a complete action means a good beginning, middle and end. Then the next term that comes in the definition is magnitude. Actions must have proper size. Magnitude means size. Okay. Now the completeness of action is directly having a link with the term magnitude. Okay. Completeness means organic unity, and this organic unity is immediately linked with the size of the work of art. If the tragedy is say for example has no proper limit or size, then sometimes it loses its symmetry. And that's why it is said that tragedy should neither be too long like an island, nor be too short like an eye of a fly. Okay, fly means an insect. The eye of an insect is too small, so tragedy should be not too small and not too large. It must be finished within one single revolution of the sun. That means the time which is presented on the stage must be of 24 hours. Okay, so that is why Aristotle writes that tragedy should center upon a single action, okay, whole and complete. The actions must be single and must be complete, having a beginning, middle and end. Next important term is ornaments. Embellished with each kind of artistic ornaments, all the actions which are presented by the tragedy writer must be adorned, must be made more beautiful with the help of artistic ornaments. Artistic ornaments means the figures of speech. Here in our society also, girls are using ornaments like earrings and nose rings and all these things, necklaces and what not. Okay, why do they use these ornaments? They use them to look more beautiful. So in language is the medium which is used as a tool to express the actions on the stage. So the language must be made more beautiful with the help of ornaments, that means figures of speech in tragedy. The Greek people, they believed in the philosophy of Philadelos. Philadelos means love for beauty, and tragedy becomes beautiful only when the author uses different ornaments in different parts of the play. Okay, the next important line that comes in the definition of tragedy is that it should be in the form of action, not narration. Tragedy should be in the form of action, not narration. Why? Because tragedy is to be enacted on the stage. It should be performed on the stage, and that's why narration is not allowed, okay, in tragedy. And this is actually the difference between an epic poetry and a drama, a tragedy. This is the difference between drama and novel. The novel has narrative techniques, okay, epic has narrative techniques, but tragedy or drama does not have this liberty. It should be in the form of dialogues and actions only, and it should be finished very faster within one single revolution of the sun. Okay, but remember, all actions must not be allowed to be performed on the stage. Sometimes, friends, it so happens that in the story there are some very ghastly or bloody scenes full of violence, the actions full of sex and violence. Such scenes must not be presented on the stage, and that's why Lucas, an important critic, he says that not everything permits itself to be acted. Means everything, all actions must not be allowed to be performed. Let not media slay her sons before the audience. Media is a character. Media kills her own sons. But such actions must not be presented on the stage. They must be narrated on the stage. Narrated with the help of chorus. Okay. And now we come to the last but the most controversial and important part of the definition, that discusses the function of tragedy. Towards the end of the definition comes the most complicated and controversial term, catharsis. Catharsis is a Greek term. Okay, through pity and fear, effecting proper catharsis of these emotions. Okay, here catharsis is a Greek term. If you translate this into English, it means purgation. Now, purgation is actually a medical term, right? Remember, Aristotle was the son of a physician, a doctor, right? So he uses this medical term purgation or catharsis. Now, purgation is what? In the morning, when we get up, we go to the toilet, okay, and we purgate the excess dross from the body. That is known as purgation, right? Now, when we are watching a tragedy, then in our heart there are some unwanted, suppressed emotions, right? In our heart there are some suppressed emotions, and when we watch a tragedy on the stage, these emotions like pity and fear are aroused, right? And they are purgated. The excess of emotions come out in the form of tears from our eyes, and this process of excess of emotions coming out from the in the form of tears is known as catharsis, is known as purgation. So what is the function of tragedy? According to Aristotle, tragedy must arouse the emotions of pity and fear in the hearts of the readers, in the hearts of the spectators, in the hearts of the audience. And the excess of emotions must come out from their body and heart. It is just like a pressure cooker, right? Like, what does the pressure cooker do? When you want to boil the potatoes, you put the potatoes and put some water and close it and give some fire from under the pressure cooker. After 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what happens? The extra steam comes out from that whistle. Okay, there is a place in the cooker, in the pressure cooker, from where the extra steam comes out. And later on, after 10 minutes, when you open the pressure cooker, your potatoes are ready to be eaten. In the same manner, when extra emotions come out from our heart, we start weeping and crying, and then this crying gives us the feeling of relaxation, and this relaxation gives us the feeling of pleasure, and that is why the function of tragedy according to Aristotle is to please the audience, to give pleasure to the readers. So friends, here we come to the end. Let's conclude by saying that the Poetics proves to be the most fascinating work, critical work for the critics. Why? Because it has great significance. Aristotle's most powerful and scientific and logical arguments on poetry, on tragedy and its functions are indeed a great, marvelous contribution to literary criticism. In fact, Aristotle is the true milestone in English literary criticism. If I quote McGraw-Hill, then he says that as a philosopher, a scientist, a logician, and a literary critic, Aristotle probably did much to shape the whole Western culture. In Western culture, he has been considered as an important literary personality. Atkins also considers him as the law giver. He has given us laws how to write tragedy. Okay, he is the law giver and absolute monarch. Monarch means the king to the poets and the critics. So friends, here we come to the end of this discussion. If you still have some doubts or questions, do write to me in the comment section of this channel. And remember, I have already prepared 2 more videos on Aristotle which you can see in my channel. Thank you very much.